Hello, Warhammer YouTubers. It's Hooves of Doom. Things are getting packed up in the hobby room here, and so it's a little bit more sparse than normal. But I thought I'd make a reply to the topic of the week, and that is the Golden Age of Wargaming. So naturally, I'll post a link down below. Check it out. I'm sure there's plenty of other good content there. It's been a little bit busy these last few weeks, finishing up some projects for the quarter this week, but I'll get back to video production very soon. But anyways, this topic of the week is about the Golden Age of Wargaming, and what Vince is really talking about is the fact that there are so many other games in the market between Ninth Age, Age of Sigmar, the brand new play styles, lots of options, Kings of War, different ways to play, virtually many different options in the market that you can play, and really any type of play style that you want, it's there, it's available. There's lots of models being produced at different price ranges. It's a good time to kind of play and be a gamer. Plus, there are numerous different lines of paints and videos and supplies, and I know one thing that Vince is always very eager to talk about is the fact that you could buy one model and potentially use it in 3 or 4 different games, and that's kind of a new thing. Um, I'm not particularly drawn to play styles. What I love is the look of the game. It needs to kind of connect with me on an intellectual level, and the aesthetics of Warhammer are what has always drawn me in. So I'm very drawn, I'm very invested in the Warhammer brand. I love the Pig Latin and the really dark and a gothic feel of 40k and the old Warhammer Fantasy brand. I love kind of the Clash of Gods of the AOS, and when I say Warhammer, I'm really referring to the whole package. The cards, the board games, the specialist games, all sorts of really stupid things I might want to collect, or that just have absolutely no practical gaming value or anything like that, but for whatever reason I think they're fun to own. My aspirations as a Warhammer player are really kind of unrealistic. If you watch my Who's video, I mean, I own a lot of armies, and it's always my intention to get them all painted up. It's a lot of time and effort, and there's so much more I want to do and want to buy in the years to come. So I don't really feel as if I need anything else as a gamer. I'm not really bored with it. I spend too much money as it is without adding some completely different systems to the mix. But I'm also, I try not to be kind of like some elitist, snob about it or something like that. I completely recognize that there are numerous other games out there that I would probably really enjoy if I actually did get into them. What got me into Warhammer specifically was really just the availability of the brand at the time. It was really the only game that I knew of when I got into it. But I'm really first and foremost a collector. And so for me, I do have a few other hobbies outside of wargaming. But when it comes to wargaming, Warhammer just scratches the itch. And it's, like I said, it's ridiculous as it is. But I do think competition is good for Games Workshop. I think it's great that there are all these different gaming options out there. I made a video about Ninth Age and Age of Sigmar in December. It's to date my most popular video, and my whole point in that was I get it. I get why people want to go back and play a type of game that is more like the old Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and I completely think that's fine. And by all means, go for it. I do think it's very good that there are numerous different games that offer different experiences for different people. And look, if you don't like the look of Warhammer models, then go buy the models from a different company. I mean, that's perfectly okay and perfectly legitimate. And the same goes for the rules and just general kind of look of the game in general. If you think, uh, if you're looking for a hi-fi game, but you don't want something that's so dark like 40K, like I get it. It's not going to be your game. That's fine. Um, so when I think of the Golden Age, I definitely recognize that there's more options, that there's these other good options for different people, that they can play their games the way they want. They can buy different paints. They're not just stuck with one option that they must use. But I think competition is good for Games Workshop, and I think that Games Workshop itself is doing fantastic. So if you're not on the Age of Sigmar camp, you might completely disagree with that. But I think that Games Workshop is doing really, really good, especially in the past 6 to 8 months. I think they've turned around. I think that they've actually done. I think they're better as a company now than they probably ever were in their past. I was a gamer back during like the other worldwide campaigns, Armageddon, I've Terror, and things like that. But this is, in my mind, a far more interactive Games Workshop, and you can definitely say that they should have been this all along. But they are doing it now, and for those of us that have continued with Games Workshop and continued with Warhammer, it's a nice kind of reward at least. So they're getting back into tournaments, both in 40K and Age of Sigmar. They're back on social media, different platforms, and they're doing a really great job in interacting with the community. They're putting up really interesting images and trying to interact virtually every single day. They're reaching out to the podcasts and certain major members of the community, reaching out on YouTube through their Warhammer TV channel. They're offering fantastic deals on products that they never really used to do before. The launch of the new specialist games. The list really goes on. I think that they are just doing so many good things right now, and ultimately I'm really excited about what the future holds. Because I would probably always say I'm excited about what the next release is, because it always usually relates to something I have. But in this case, I would say like I'm excited about what's going to come out like a year from now or something, because we know Blood Bowl's coming out. We know all these other games are in the works. I can't wait to see them. I can't wait to kind of what they're going to look like. What I can only imagine what the models are going to look like. And I love the new box games. I love where AOS is going with the General's Handbook, etc., etc. Now, if I were to highlight a few problems of the community, maybe people like myself that just play mono games. Like I said, I try to be kind of fairly candid about it. I recognize that there are other good options out there for other people, and if you were to ask me is this I would say it's a very good hobby, but I would also say that it's a kind of a ridiculous hobby in many respects, because it's just so compulsive in a sense. But I would say as a negative, there are, so on the other flip side of that, I would say that there's people that are kind of just wholeheartedly anti-Games Workshop, and they might have some legitimate grievances, but I think they kind of take it a bit too far on like a very personal level. And they, to my mind at least, they brand an entire group of people as being wholly negative or just really stupid. So there are some inherent problems. There's a lot of camps. I think that's like the biggest thing. But I think as people play more multiple games, I think that will become easier, become less of a problem. And so my final thoughts on the Golden Age of Wargaming is that it's really difficult to really understand what the different ages really are, because usually these are determined in retrospect. So when I think of gold and silver and bronze, I think of Latin. There are distinct Latin periods that when you look at authors, Golden Age is more of like this spontaneity, more creative, like the best writers. The Silver and Bronze Ages are trying to imitate that style but can't quite do it. So what I would probably say is we could be on the cusp of something better. In which case, this, we might look back and say, that was good. This is way, 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 way better. I'm not really sure how to necessarily improve a lot of these elements, though. Certainly, like how the community operates and things like that. Making sure that it's inclusive and things, those types of elements. I'm not sure you can effectively phase that out. I don't know if you can effectively eliminate that completely. So I think that this probably is as good as it can be. Although, like I said, I'm really eager to see what new releases and what might be coming in the future. But, it could be maybe it's just something far worse in the future, and then we would definitely look back at this and say, this is the golden age. But for me personally, and this is something that I really do want to hone in on this, because I hold a lot of nostalgia for my earliest days in the hobby. Back when I was first getting into Warhammer, like those... to me, they seem like super long periods of time, but I know, rationally it was just like a couple of years, but maybe because I was like, 19 or something at the time, a couple of years is a more significant deal than it is for me today. But I tend to look back at those periods and go, those were the classic games. Getting in, seeing like a Baneblade for the first time in like a magazine, seeing all these things for the first time, that was like the mind-blowing experience. And I think for all these releases and on everything I do in some sense is trying to get back to that period, right? You can go even further and say it's all trying to get back to my even younger self when I'm playing Hero Quest for the first time with my buddies, and boy, I still want to have a game of Warhammer with my best friend every now and then. Like, even though he doesn't play Warhammer, I still think, oh man, if we get together, we're going to have a few games, right? But it's not really his thing. Anyway, but what I would say for the Golden Age, and for this is relating to here and now, is that YouTube, and I guess my channel coincides with the launch of Age of Sigmar. That's what really propelled me into YouTube. So AOS as well. This brand, this fresh new game, this whole new playing experience, completely new styles of armies and play experiences coming in the future, and that's very exciting. And I don't know if I would necessarily, if it was just a traditional 9th Age, it may have been a continuation of a Golden Age from 8th or something. But I think AOS, and certainly my involvement in the YouTube community, meeting all these other content producers, getting to know a lot of the viewers, a lot of the other content producers I consider to be really good friends now. So it's for me, just personally as a human being, it's been a fantastic experience. So this would, in some sense, be, I'm getting into a painting that I've never really done much truly before, to my eternal shame. But so this is really just as a personal gaming experience, and just my wholehearted interaction with the community, my love of this new game and what's going on. This certainly is a golden age of a sense. It is a renaissance for me as a Warhammer player, and I'm loving every minute of it. Of course, if I absolutely hated AOS, it would probably be the worst period. So there's always a little bit of perspective there. But anyways, those are my thoughts on the Golden Age of Wargaming. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good one.